rich, closing the wealth disparity by taxing the rich, which doesn't work. But hey, that's their argument, right? Well, guys, listen to this.
Go ahead. They got caught again. Go for it, Rob.
S&P 500, the Dow Jones, all up today. They've recovered everything that they lost since Liberation Day. Things are actually going really, really well. This whole thing about GM.
I mean, Dow Jones up. The S&P 500 is up. NASDAQ is up. We're doing well.
The CEO saying that they're going to be everything that they lost since Liberation Day. Things are actually going really, really well. This whole thing about GM, the CEO saying that they're going to be, there's going to be a $5 billion cost to the tariffs. But she also said something very important. She said, this will not be passed on to the consumer. So where is it going to come from, you might wonder? Well, they brought down their projections. Not projections. All of it will be.
And what did I tell people? I told you, I'm real with you, none of these companies is passing that cost down to the consumer. Why? Because they're in competition. So just like the CEO of GM, pretty much said, look, I still got to compete with Ford, who makes their cars in America already. They can't afford to raise their prices or to lose out on the market to Ford. So what GM said was, all right, look, man, we usually make about 15 billion a year. We can cut it down to 5. F it. We'll cut it. I mean, sure, we can lose 5 billion. We'll cut it down to 10 billion in profits this year. They took it out of their profit margin. Yes, they took it out their profit margins. If they sometimes they can get the supplier to cut down their prices on the parts. But like I said, tariffs can be split between the supplier and the importer. That means it's either the supplier can low-key reduce the cost or the importer can low-key take a hit on their overhead or profit margin. And they told you that tariffs can only work one way.
She said none of it will be passed on to the consumer, that this will come out of the profits. They projected 14 billion profits. They're taking that projection down to 10 billion. This is what we want.
Okay, but wait.
This is what we want. Okay. We want tariffs. So we want manufacturing. We want the billionaires to pay their fair share, and we want the cost not to be passed on to the consumers. And that's what we're seeing. Such a great example.
Hold on. Let me just try to understand this. So GM's profits will decrease probably significantly as a result of this. Let's take that.
I'm telling you what they said.
And here's the thing. It's like, I thought you guys would be happy. These corporate elites are going to have to take it to the chin, take it to the profit margin before they raise the price on you, or else they'll lose out on the market. Like, yeah, there's a thing called a competition in the market. So these guys won't raise their prices because they rather get the sales. I'm telling you this right now. They rather get the sales, and they know they'll lose out on sales if they raise their prices. Even if all of them decides to raise their prices, they'll still lose out on sales because they'll see less consumption. These guys want sales. But y'all don't understand business, so I can see where the confusion is.
No, I'm just saying. Okay,
Republican in 7
What do you think is going to happen when GM's profits suddenly drop? What will happen to GM and the people that work there?
The CEO herself, Mary Barra,
woman, did you not just hear her? She said out the profits. You know what the profits are, right? That means she already paid everything. That means she already calculated that usually we get about 15 billion a year. Now, that's after they paid all of their workers, paid for all of their supplies, paid for everything else that the business needs to be ran. And then they get to that $15 billion. They're willing to take a $5 billion loss and just keep it at 10. Instead of raising prices on the consumer. That's what most of these companies are doing. And the companies that don't are stupid. Like, what was it? It was this one toy company that says, oh, we're going to have to pass down our costs. Hasbro's not doing that. So I guess whatever companies, what was it? Mattel? Yeah, the Mattel toy company. Well, they're about to lose out on business because Hasbro ain't raising their prices. A lot of these toy companies ain't raising their prices because they understand how the market works. If they hear that you're raising their price, they're like, okay, bet, we'll keep our price down so you can lose the market. Economic strategy is real. You know that, guys. And tariffs don't just work one way. And it's not a price raise on the people. It's not a tax on the consumer or a regressive tax. Like, stop with that.
President Trump for this because she is a patriot and she understands that the situation we're in with China is not sustainable.
Shareholders would like to have a word.
We sold out our future to China. Somebody had to do something about that.
The corporation is going to take less money they're going to eat the profits out of the sense of
it's so
patriotism.
great to hear Democrats suddenly being so, pro-corporation. And
bro, that's what I'm saying, bro. That shit was, bro, shout out. They're literally over there talking about, well, the corporation's profits and the multi-millionaire, billionaire shareholders that we said that we hate. Well, what about them, guys? What about them? What do you mean? I thought you guys didn't like the corporate elites. Now you're worried about what their shareholders are gonna say? Like, really? Really now?
Bruh.
Bro, you guys hate Trump so much, you're rooting for the elites that you guys say you hate so much. But I guess you hate Trump more.
I'm not being pro-corporation. I'm actually being pro-people, because what's bad for the corporation is going to be bad for the world.
Hey, and shout out to my man Daniel Welch coming in. He says, just here to show love. Hey, appreciate the love, man. And shout out to my man Daniel Castro. He says, on the way home from work, got off early. The profiters have to absorb the losses, not the customer. They have made too much on us for too long. And bro, if they wanted to raise the price, then why don't they? Like, they don't gotta wait on tariffs to do so. They'd have just done it if the product was worth that much that they felt like they can get it off, but they know they can't. That's the funny part. When everybody thinking that's supposed to be like a price raise, I'm like, you guys are ridiculous, or you just don't honestly understand how tariffs work or how these business transactions could go any way, especially when it comes to tariffs. Like, the term of today is elasticity. God damn, I hated this word in economic class. Elasticity. Elasticity.
Worker. Now, look, I couldn't care less about it. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I couldn't care less about any of the corporations.
Corporations are people, my friend.
You're working for a corporation. Yeah, except the one on your paycheck, dude. This show is so.
Any of the corporations that were just listed, but why?
You can pause it right there. But what's great about the fact,
bro, what was great about that was the fact that these guys really didn't even see themselves. Like, did you guys really just start speaking up for the shareholders, the corporate elite, the billionaires that y'all say y'all hate so much? I mean, no, please keep that attitude. Keep that attitude. But like, it's so funny though how y'all have it now. I mean, look, tariffs is gonna work, but please keep that attitude for later on, because we're about, like, y'all got the right attitude just at the wrong time.
European and Asian vehicles as well, what we see coming out of the UK trade deal with the US?
Look, all of these deals are going to be tailor-made. The president has said that from the beginning. It's very apropos that the first trade deal was announced between the United States and the United Kingdom, one of our oldest and greatest allies. But each country has unique concerns and challenges. In terms of American industry, we need to open up markets in every single country. And obviously the needs are unique. So our trade team is looking at each country and the advantages that we can pursue for American industries and American workers. Sure.
Happy early Mother's Day. Oh, thank you. The president said yesterday that he would be speaking with Zelensky shortly. Did that call happen yesterday, or do we expect that to happen in the near term?
The call happened yesterday. President Zelensky called the president to tell him that the critical minerals deal had passed the parliament in Ukraine. I talked to the president about that call. He said it was very good and productive. And of course, the critical minerals deal is great for Ukraine, but also, of course, for the United States of America and our taxpayers here. It was a good call. And they also spoke about, of course, this ceasefire that the president proposed, the 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, which we know Europe is on board with, and we hope both countries will agree to.
Just on next week, do we expect President Putin, is there any chance that he could meet with Trump while he's in the region?
The president answered this yesterday. Not going to happen.
Question on ceasefire. Has he got any reaction from Zelensky or Putin on the proposal for ceasefire? Is he satisfied by the reaction to that proposal?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if there is reaction and updates, I'm sure you'll hear directly from the president.
Question, the president fired the Librarian of Congress. Why did he choose to do that?
We felt she did not fit the needs of the American people. There were quite concerning things that she had done at the Library of Congress in the pursuit of DEI and putting inappropriate books in the library for children. And we don't believe that she was serving the interests of the American taxpayer well. So she has been removed from her position, and the president is well within his rights to do that.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Caroline.
Hold on. Anybody that was letting in those, those very, I ain't gonna, man, bro, how would I say this? Because they weren't sexual. They didn't really show naked body parts, but the problem is it like promoted Well, I'm just gonna say they promoted homosexual relationships. It told stories about homosexual relationships, and it was in children's libraries. So, I mean, trust me, it was way worse in the high school library because they actually had nudity in theirs. But in the children ones, it just tells stories about homosexual relationships honestly in a kid's fashion. It's like a kid's book about homosexual relationships. I mean, the times we live in, huh?
Mother's Day as well.
Thank you.
President Trump ran on delivering the biggest tax cut in history, got over 70 million votes. Right now, you got a handful of obstructionists in the Republican conference that are saying they're not going to go along with his tax cut package. You just said those that don't will be held accountable. What is your description of being held accountable?
Well, look, I think they'll be held accountable by the voters in their respective districts if they choose to vote for a tax hike to the tune of $4 trillion, which would raise taxes to thousands of dollars per household in this country. The president has great political instincts. That's why he's back in the Oval Office, and Capitol Hill should follow his lead. As for the president, speaking of him, he will be signing executive orders later this afternoon. We are happy to provide more information on those executive orders if you wish. Thank you for the Mother's Day wishes, and happy Mother's Day to all of the moms in the room. And don't forget to call your mom this Sunday. We'll see you guys later. Have a good weekend.
No, don't forget to call mama. Like, hey, call your mom. All right. All right, then. And tell her said what's up.
Howard Lutnick, you.
No, not in that way. Not in that way. No, this is not a I hit your mom. All right, let's get to Howard Lutnick.
Saw him in the Oval yesterday. He's been embedded in these trade talks, instrumental in them over the last month, especially with the first deal announced with the UK. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us on a busy Friday night. You heard what the New York Times reporter, commentator said that, oh, well, the UK deal, that was just low-hanging fruit, really.
Wow. I mean, can you imagine making up something more silly than that? I mean, the Biden administration didn't even talk to them. I mean, imagine they opened their market for the first time in 30 years for $5 billion in exports while paying us $6 billion a year in tariffs. Yeah, sure, Biden could have done that. One person in the whole world could have done that, and that's our President Donald Trump and his economic team.
Now, the talks this weekend with China are preliminary, but the president has already floated the idea of lowering that 145% level, which he had already conceded was high and it wasn't sustainable, but down to perhaps 80. Some people were talking 50, and I know you guys have been going back and forth. Talk about that a little bit, because of course the Democrats are painting that as a walk back, or Trump, clearly was bitten by this whole process, so he's scaling back his ambitions.
Hey, bro.
You got to be kidding me. I mean, look, I agree. 104.
It's like, bro, it's like when you put the tariffs out and then all these companies came, companies and countries alike came to the table. So he brought them back. So he brought them down. The Dems framed that as him reneging, or, oh, he flinched. No, he got what he wanted. And it was kind of crazy how the Dems just ran on that story for a complete 2 weeks. It was absolutely hilarious. But hey, man, they don't really pay attention to what's really going on. They just depend on the mainstream media. And I mean, that just leaves them lost.
45%, as the president said. Come on, you know what that is? That's decoupling. You don't do business that way. And as you hear, of course, as the president said, the boats are just turning back around and going back. So I think the president would like to work it out with China. As he said, he'd like to de-escalate it. But look, he's not going to live with $1 trillion deficit. He's just not going to do it. So the idea is de-escalate, but let's get China trade right, and let's get trade deals with the rest of the world. Let's cut our trade deficit down. Let's grow our GDP. I think the president can grow our GDP 3%. I mean, I think this president's got it right. He's got it dead right, and he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing, and I can't be more excited.
Talk about the process here, because I know you can't give us all the specifics, but President Trump is one of these guys who, like, you bring him a deal. You say, I think we got a deal with the UK, Mr. President. And he listens, right? And then he said, get me a better deal. Like, and you actually have to go back and then you have to negotiate the better deal than the good deal that you just got. But that's kind of always working, I think, for the American people. I like that.
Oh, totally. So, look, we worked on this for 45 days. We went every line item. This is a detailed line: ethanol, beef, cereal, machinery. I mean, line by line, we get it all done, right? We get it all done. We get it all packaged up. I'm working morning, noon, and night on the deal. I sit down with Donald Trump. I said, okay, here's the deal. It's beautiful. It's in a bow. You know, $4 billion worth of opening market, $6 billion of revenues. He goes, let's go over it. I can make it better. I'm like, I've done everything I can. He goes, I'm going to make it better. He picks up the phone. He calls Sturmer, and he makes the deal, and he adds $1 billion of new exports to the deal. And he says to him, come on, just wrap it up right now on the phone, and you'll be on the press conference tomorrow, and we'll see how great it is. And he just pushes the guy. I love letting the best deal maker in the world make the deal. It's the most fun for me. He added an extra $1 billion by that phone call. The man is the best deal maker I've ever seen.
Well, I had a chance to see him today, and had an off-the-record conversation. But it's clear that he believes that the half-empty barges that are being reported as the worst thing ever, that's a sign this is working. That's exactly what he wanted to happen to put the squeeze on China before these talks. Am I missing something?
No, absolutely not. Look, we know that they rely on our consumer and our markets. And he wants to just make sure everybody knows, they know, and we know that it's time to make the right deal. It's time to start making the right deal. And you got to put cards on the table. And you know, the president, he loves to do that. He loves to let everybody know how it's going. He speaks respectfully about Xi, but he knows that they need our markets. And then he sends his team in and says, let's.
And a lot of people don't understand why China needs our market. Now, you got to understand, people like to, say that, oh, well, we're only 15% of their exports. Well, really, we're 16.8% of their exports, according to 2024 numbers. But actually, we're somewhere closer to 25 to 30% of their exports, because you know what they didn't count? They didn't count the Chinese product that they were sending to Mexico and Vietnam. Yeah, we didn't count those in the exports from China. So when you add those up, because like I said, they came from China, went to Mexico and Vietnam for relabeling, and went right into the United States illegally, I might add. Yeah, when you add that up, that is about 25 to 30% of their exports.
Let's de-escalate, but let's de-escalate with a view that we're going to make a good deal for America.
Is there a strong chance that the current tariffs will be completely paused after this weekend's talks?
Nope.
No chance. No chance. No way. No way.
Nope.
Well, what will happen? Well, okay. So let's say they don't. Let's say they have a great meeting and maybe a general understanding that we're going to talk again. We want to make progress.
Well, I ain't gonna lie. The way the Chinese government is going, which we will get into, the way their government is going, they're gonna bend the knee to us. That's gonna be the funniest part about it. Everybody says we're gonna bend the knee to China. Trust me, you're about to see China bend the knee to us for the sake of their economy and their government. Because, well, the way these commies work is that if you don't keep the people fed, you get overthrown. So, I mean, here we are.
But the 145 stay in place, or is it moved down to what we heard today?
No. They come down to a human level, right? To a level where we do business. There are significant tariffs. The president is going to keep significant tariffs on trade with China. That is his objective. That's his expectation. That should be everybody's expectation. But 145% is decoupling. Let's not do business with each other. Let's bring it down to a level that he studied and he knows, right? Where did we come out with on Liberation Day? 34% is where he came out on Liberation Day. That's the studied number that Donald Trump did then. He may put it up higher, but that's kind of the idea. 34%. Liberation Day, 20% for the fentanyl. If they stop doing the fentanyl, that'll come off, but we can't live with fentanyl ingredients coming to America. So I think that's the number that he published on Liberation Day, and that's the number you should look at. And somewhere around there, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. Donald Trump will make the deal with the Chinese.
That fentanyl is a little bit more complicated because that involves Chinese gang activity. Yes, the Chinese triad is the one who supplies the fentanyl to the cartel to deliver it into here. So they don't just send it in through their products. They also supply the cartel with the fentanyl as well. So trust me, that fentanyl tax ain't going anywhere anytime soon due to all the vectors that they, get fentanyl in here.
To de-escalate, and then we'll go forward from there, making deals with everyone in the world. Then we'll sit down with China and try to work out the right deal for America with China.
Any sense of where the final talks would take place, Howard?
No, I think there's going to be dozens of talks with China, but de-escalation first, and then huge amounts of talks and huge amounts of details of what's the right thing for America, and Donald Trump owns it.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much.
Click here. Whoops, not that. Now let's get into some criticism on Trump's tariffs from this guy, Gavin Newsom. Yes, Governor Newsom.
So I spoke with California Governor Gavin Newsom just a little bit ago about President Trump's reciprocal tariff policy. Please take a listen. All right, folks, joining us now.
I will say this. Newsom is like the only Democrat who's really talking to, all the Republicans, all the conservatives. He's taking on the conservative party, at least speaking engagement wise. Like, he's willing to talk to us. So I will give him that, even though he is a terrible, terrible governor.
Actually, an old friend. Let's be honest. I've known him for many years and worked with him in the White House. California's governor, Mr. Gavin Newsom. Governor, welcome to the Kudlow Show. We appreciate this very much.
I appreciate it, Larry. Good to join you.
Yes, sir. So I take it you're not enamored of President Trump's reciprocity.
And shout out Fernando. Look up Sam Cedar Jubilee. Oh, my God. This guy, Sam Cedar. Bro, if Sam Cedar is y'all best guy, man, I feel bad for you. Now, I'm not going to lie, Amanda, I do agree with the man on some things. Like, as far as his pro-Palestinian stances and what he thinks about Israel, yeah, I agree with him on that. But as his tax, what he says about taxes and marginal tax rate and how he brings up the slam brown bag experiment, he kind of picks and chooses what information he wants to share with you out of certain studies. And honestly, the man's just incorrect in his stances. But come on, I could pick apart each argument.
Reciprocity, fair trade approach to dealing with global trade imbalances. Since you're my guest, I want to give you the first shot at it.
But he was on PBD, though. He did have the entire PBD crew just jumping out their seat, though. I will give you that one. That man, Sam Cedar, he does know how to rile up the Republicans or the conservatives. I will give him that.
Tell us what you would do instead, or why you don't like what Mr. Trump is doing with respect to trade.
Well, even if I was going to be charitable, I would say his inconsistent, chaotic approach does the opposite. It freezes investment, consumer confidence, small businesses, large, medium-sized businesses. Everybody I talk to feels very similarly. This chaos is not the kind of predictability and stability that would ultimately inure, I think, to Trump's favor in terms of, again, making his case. But the impacts, Larry, here in California, 40% of the goods movement in the United States through just the Port of Long Beach and LA are outsized. We're the number one manufacturing state, number one ag state, number one in direct foreign investment, two-way trade. These impacts are being felt. They're real. And this is just simply chaotic, including now apparently 80%, not 145% on the Chinese tariffs.
Bruh, dog, no, it's still 145%. It's not 80%. I don't know who told you that, but they lied to you, my man. They lied to you.
Well, what I don't understand in general, and you may have an answer to this. All right, people that disagree with what President Trump is doing, you can't argue that the world trading system is fair. It's an unfair system. It's an unbalanced system. Just read you a couple things. I'm sure you know this stuff, but in terms of tariffs themselves, European Union has 50% higher than we do. China, twice as high as we do. Vietnam, 3 times as high. Brazil.
Hey, and shout out to Michelle Glass. She says, what's good, Set? Hey, what's good, Michelle? Appreciate you for tuning in, sis. And shout out to the supporters. Hey, appreciate it, Michelle.
3.5 times, India 3 times. The World Trade Organization permits all this. They never step in to remedy this. It's a very unfair trading system. We, the United States, is at a great disadvantage. It has harmed our manufacturing. It's harmed our automobiles. It's harmed our agriculture sector. I mean, that's the case. But you can't deny that those tariffs are much higher. And what Trump is saying is, okay, if you charge us higher, we're going to go higher. But if you charge us lower tariffs, then we will go lower.
Actually, you know what actually killed me? How come Gavin Newsom, like I said, he went to all the tariffs are hurting the farmers, agriculture, and all that? I'm like, bro, you understand that the UK deal is probably the best thing to happen for California and honestly any farmer anywhere. If you're a farmer like in America, yes, $5 billion, a $5 billion market has now been open for them. I don't know why they don't ever report the good stuff and just leave and only want to kind of find something that they can complain about. But hey, it is what it is. I hear the concerns, but let's be real. We knew this was going to happen.
And that includes non-tariff barriers as well. Now, to me, that's very, common sense and plain spoken. How else would you do it unless you're willing to accept these fact that America gets the short end of the tariff stick? So what would you do about it, Governor?
Well, look, I'm not denying, and remember, I hardly said a peep when the Biden administration extended broadly the tariffs against China and then actually tripled them for Chinese steel and aluminum. So I'm not an absolutist when it comes to tariff policy. I just think it should be coupled with an industrial policy that's worker-centered. I think that's missing a little bit. Look, let me submit a recognition of that imbalance, but the approach he's taking is just quixotic. It's destructive. It's having a profound impact on our confidence and our relationships around the globe, our relationships to one another.
Bro, okay, so you have all the criticism in the world, but once again, no solution, no plan, just straight bitching. Like, bro, y'all Dems got to do better. Y'all got to do better. There's probably like maybe one Dem I've heard actually give a real plan.
Supply chains, look, 60%, and Larry, you know this, 60% now of those container ship bookings from China now have been reduced. It's a serious moment around supply chains and back to school supplies. Christmas toys could quite literally be impacted. And I don't think he sold this well. He didn't prepare us well. The market volatility, but the business.
The problem is that y'all sold to the entire American people that tariffs are going to raise, prices. And, I'd like to challenge that. Well, why didn't they raise prices in 2016 then? I mean, we hit China with tariffs then and there was no price raise. So what happened then? Guys, what happened? Okay, then. But for some reason, these Dems have created a lie for the corporate elites that will scare people out of, wanting tariffs or understanding how tariffs work. So shout out to the corporate elites for buying up mainstream media and feeding you this, tariff is a price raise on the people. I mean, shout out to them. I mean, it's honestly quite brilliant, and I'm surprised. I didn't think people would be sold on that lie so well. Like, really? So y'all just gonna believe the lie that tariffs can only work one way? We're talking about economics here, but okay.
Business impacts are disproportionate and outsized. It's a very serious moment. There's a better approach if he wanted to take it. He hasn't taken it yet.
Well, I think there was a lot of shock and awe. I grant you that, and it took a lot of people by surprise. I grant you that. But now it seems to be settling in. And you mentioned the China story. I mean, China's been taking us. Listen, Gavin, I was on the China trade team for two and a half years, and we put together a deal. China, the phase one China trade deal. All
right, guys, we got about 400 y'all in here, man. Do me a favor and double tap that screen and like the video with the 3 dots up there in the corner. Appreciate the support, guys.
Signed it with much ballyhoo. I don't know if you were at that. I mean, you might have been. It was in the White House. It was in the State Department. We had gala dinners and whatnot. And, what did they do? They didn't adhere to it. They didn't adhere to any of it. They didn't adhere to the fentanyl. They didn't adhere to the intellectual property theft, the forced transfer of technology, the purchases of agriculture, manufacturers, all that. They just dissed us, They lied to us. And so Trump's trying to do something about it. It may not be perfect. Now, they're negotiating, as you know. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's negotiating in Switzerland with the Chinese. That may be.
All right, now I got to grill you, G, because I was letting you talk for a while, but now I got to grill you. All right, man. So first off, of course, I know how a tariff work. The problem is you don't know how a tariff work, and you're believing mainstream media over a person who's actually taking an economics class. Honestly, over economists who've already said what tariffs do. So let's just go over what tariffs are real quick. It is a tax on the imports or exports on products that a government places from a country, right? So we get that, right? So we understand how these tariffs are work also. So U.S. and in this terms of the U.S., us, the buyer, so importing side, and China, the exporting side, they send in their products, and the importer, which would be us, pays the tariff at U.S. Customs. I know that. Now, I've been said that this tariff cost can be split between the producer, not the producer, but the supplier, and they can either cut their prices or the importer can find a whole new supplier in a different country because China isn't the end all be all, of course. But yes, is either the supplier can cut their prices or the importer just takes it on hit on either their overhead costs or their profit margins, as we've seen with the example of GM. Because what did GM do? They said, all right, look, we're not just not going to get these cars in for the year. So we're going to go ahead, pay that $5 million, pay that $5 billion tariffs and take it out of profit margin. That's the perfect example of how most of these companies are handling tariffs. They're taking out their overhead costs or their profit margin, or they flip it back on the supplier and be like, yo, I'm not paying this. It's either you're going to cut your price to balance this out for me, or I'm going to go to a different supplier in a different in a different country. It's about as easy as that. And now I bid you adieu, my friend. But have a good night.
Promising, or it may not be. But, who can rely on China? I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not denying that. I mean, the IP issues are legendary. And of course, that impacts, again, forgive me, disproportionately.
Oh, and shout out Michelle Glass. You said Newscomb is a failed business. California, I'm weak. Newscomb is a failed business owner. And we're talking about California, but Trump successful. Exactly. I mean, bro, we're talking about a man who can't even run the best honestly, the best state we got. The best state with the biggest economy, this man is somehow sinking into the ground. And you want to talk about the president? Like, bro, why don't you focus on your state first? Because this is ridiculous. Focus on the smaller scale that you have, because you can't even handle that, but you're judging a man who's running the entire nation, including, the 50 states, including, the state that you're in.
The state of California, the fourth largest economy in the world, where we dominate in innovation, entrepreneurialism, more venture capital, obviously more patents emanating from this state than any other state, the number one manufacturing state in America. And obviously the trading relationships with China are outsized here. And you're right, on tech restrictions, I mean, these things have to be advanced. There's just a better approach than the approach he's taking. And what my fear is, it's not my fear, it's the reality. We've seen 11% decline last month in tourism in the state of California. We're projecting after record-breaking tourism spend. We're seeing the impacts already of this tariff war. We're seeing the impacts with dock workers. We're seeing the impacts with truckers, with small businesses, with my own eyes. This is not an intellectual exercise. So if it wasn't so chaotic, I would at least engage in a very, I think, reasonable conversation about addressing those issues with a little bit more muscularity. But this is recklessness. And I cannot impress upon you, you know this, the impacts can't be unwound quickly and easily. And I fear that Geneva is not going to be a success. It needs to be. I'm promoting that success, but I very much fear that the nature of the decision-making that seems to come on news cycles, not on the basis of a grand strategy, is the great impediment in terms of getting to the place we all want to go.
Well, there's no question Chinese exports to the U.S.
So once again, all complaints, no plan.
It's way down in April. There's no question about that. And there's no question that the container shipping has also fallen off, not surprisingly, given the high level of the tariffs. On the other hand, I think that I can't. I'm not speaking for the administration. I'm not part of this administration. I was in the first term, as you know. But I'm saying, I think their strategy is to make deals, lower tariff, lower non-tariff barrier deals with the surrounding countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, India. I think India is probably on the cusp of an announcement. I could be wrong, Gavin, but I think they are. South Korea certainly may be on the cusp. So I think there'll be substitution effects. Those countries which are our allies, not China's allies, probably will take up the slack, not through transshipping the way it was in the old game, but because they've learned how to make good factories and good products too. And, you know, California and the rest of the country will be able to trade with them. So let me just say this right. If Governor Newsom runs for president, as President Newsom, you agree with the thesis that we have an unfair trading system, that their tariffs are higher than ours, foreign tariffs are much higher, that our market access for our exports needs to be improved, and we need a level playing field. You agree with the thesis. How would a President Gavin Newsom do it differently, I guess I'd like to know.
Well, that's a hypothetical. I can just say, look, I wouldn't do it the way it's being done. Identifying a problem is one thing, and advancing solutions and strategies in a consistent and comprehensive.
Because y'all don't know the problem. Just admit it. Even when y'all talk about trade deficits, you don't even understand the problem. Like when I hear libs say, oh, what's wrong with trade deficits? You don't understand the problem. The problem isn't trade deficits. It's how we reach these trade deficits. And how we reach these trade deficits is 1, China steals intellectual property. 2, import limitations or bans. And then 3, just straight up tariffs, high ass tariffs. I mean, China's a good example and India is a pretty good example because they got 70% on everybody,
way, step by step, is the preferred approach. The instincts to bring manufacturing back are spot on, absolutely right. And with respect, I would argue that the Biden administration advanced them in a deeply meaningful way. Talk about worker-centered industrial policy, the CHIPS and Science Act, the IRA, a framework of focus that I think was very populist. This was a President Biden in this case that walked the picket line, that saved the pensions for the Teamsters. But there was at least a more consistent, rational approach. I'd rather see him double down on the CHIPS and Science Act. I think tariffs can be used in targeted terms, but it's hard. It's hard work. And this notion that you can...
Oh, that CHIPS Act was like some old commie Chinese bullshit. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like only in China, only in communist governments where they give government subsidies to these companies so they can dominate the domestic market. And that's exactly what China was doing. And that's why Trump ended it, because we will not copy the actions of China to try to get ourselves out of an economic pickle, which, well, that's exactly what Biden was trying to do. He was trying to subsidize billionaires, give taxpayer money to billionaires to build here or to manufacture here in the USA, when all you had to do was just hit them with a tariff and they ass come running. I mean, this man had to shell out money and Trump got him to do it for free. Come on now, who's a better negotiator?
Just arbitrarily across the board, raise it here, emotionally raise it there, lower it emotionally, lower it here. This sends messages, mixed messages that make investment almost impossible. And as a business person, as you know, myself, a guy who's created 21 small businesses, the impacts even on my businesses are outsized that rely on exports into Canada as an example, and rely on making long-term investments. It's put a chill on the ability to make wise decisions.
All right. Well, of course, when I first met you and interviewed you on another network, you were the moderate mayor of San Francisco, rather pro-business, as I recall. And you and I did some business even while I was in the White House 4 or 5 years ago. So we appreciate it very much. You're very kind to come on the show. I hope you'll come back on the show and we can talk about us.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I'll give to Gavin Newsom. I mean, he is talking to the other side. You don't really see too much of these Democrats on Fox News, but you will see conservatives on CNN or MSNBC or